What if the biggest threat to the Marvel Universe wasn't a villain or even a hero? What if the last man standing was the angriest, most broken man of all? Frank Castle lost everything, and when the world's heroes destroyed his family, he made one promise. Everyone pays. No more second chances. No more mercy. No more Avengers. No more X-Men. They called themselves heroes until their war took everything from Frank Castle. Now, there's no mercy, no justice, only punishment. Tonight, the Marvel Universe learns what happens when the last man standing is the one with nothing left to lose. It started like any other superhero battle. Another crisis. Another promise to save the world. The X-Men fought alien invaders in Central Park, their powers ripping through the sky. But between the explosions and the heroics, nobody saw the collateral. Frank Castle's family was gone in a flash, killed by the chaos these heroes brought with them. In that moment, Frank's grief turned to fury. He raised his gun, found Cyclops in his sights, and didn't hesitate. One shot. One dead leader. Wolverine lunged at Frank, claws out and rage burning in his eyes. But Colossus stepped in, holding Logan back, forcing him to let Frank live. And with that single pull of the trigger, Frank Castle's real war began. After the shooting, Frank was arrested and put on trial. Matt Murdock, better known as Daredevil, was appointed as his lawyer. But even Matt couldn't save him from the verdict. Life in prison. Frank thought he'd spend the rest of his days behind bars. But a group of powerful, bitter men who'd lost as much as Frank, but from the shadows, had other plans. They broke him out, offering him resources, weapons, and everything he'd need to take down every superhero and villain. All they wanted was for Frank to finish what he'd started, punish the entire superhuman world. Frank didn't flinch, he accepted. If the so-called heroes wouldn't face consequences, he'd deliver it himself. From that day forward, Frank Castle's mission was simple. No more forgiveness. No more collateral. No more heroes. Frank's first assignment took him deep into the city's sewers, where Venom and Spider-Man were locked in a vicious fight. He was ready. Frank triggered a trap, sending a surge of electricity through barbed wires that ensnared them both, leaving the two icons helpless and stunned. Venom barely had time to recover before Frank gunned him down. Cold, efficient, and silent. Spider-Man, paralyzed and desperate, pleaded for his life, asking why him. Frank looked him in the eye and said, "'Cause somebody had to be first." He pulled the trigger. With that, Frank Castle's war truly began. Frank's war escalated quickly. His next target wasn't a villain or a street-level hero, but a force of nature, the Hulk. Frank tracked Bruce Banner to a place where there'd be no witnesses, no collateral damage. He laid his trap, waiting for the Hulk to transform back to the human Bruce Banner. Before the Banner could react, Frank acted. One well-placed shot was all it took to bring down the strongest there is. For the first time, the world realized no one was beyond the Punisher's reach, not even the Hulk. Frank's next message was for the criminal underworld. He stormed Kingpin's tower, forcing his way through hired guns until he reached Wilson Fisk himself. Fisk, frustrated, claimed he'd been stockpiling weapons to help Frank hunt heroes and intended to fully support Frank till he attacked Fisk. Frank didn't buy it. He attacked anyway, and the two giants clashed in a brutal fistfight. Battered but relentless, Frank finished it his way. One shot at point-blank range. Kingpin fell. His empire ended in a single gunshot. Frank left Fisk's body as a warning. Even the so-called kings weren't safe from punishment. Afterward, Frank was arrested again. This time, Matt Murdock, Daredevil, tried to reason with him, hoping to pull Frank back from the edge. but it was too late. The same powerful men who set him loose the first time broke him out once more, determined to keep the war going. Frank's next target wasn't a petty criminal or a rampaging monster. It was Victor Von Doom, the iron-fisted ruler of Latveria. Frank infiltrated Doom's castle disguised as the Fantastic Four, hoping to catch Doom off guard. But Doom saw through the ruse and attacked, overwhelming Frank in battle. Just as Doom was about to win, Frank planted a magnetic mine on Doom's head, disabling all the Doom bots and turning the tide. With Doom stunned and defenseless, Frank picked up a sledgehammer and brought it down again and again, bashing Doom's skull in until nothing remained. The reign of Dr. Doom ended not with a speech, but with raw, brutal force, his legacy crushed by a single relentless man. Frank set his sights on the world's mutants next. He orchestrated an elaborate trap, luring the X-Men, X-Force, X-Factor, Magneto, Apocalypse, and all their allies and enemies to a secret meeting on the moon under the guise of a final set of challenges. Trusting old instincts they came, hoping for a final showdown against lifelong adversaries. Instead, Frank detonated a hidden nuclear bomb. In a blinding instant, mutants and villains alike were wiped out. No last stands, no heroics, just total annihilation engineered by one man's vengeance. The message was clear. There would be no survivors in Frank Castle's New World Order. Not everyone died in the Moon's Massacre. One man, Logan, the Wolverine, still survived, sent to Japan to chase ghosts. Frank hunted him down for a final reckoning. Just two of the toughest men alive locked in a fight to the death. Wolverine came at Frank with rage, claws, and raw fury. Frank fought dirty, using everything he'd learned in a lifetime of war. In the end, Frank used Logan's own claws to stab him, then hurled Wolverine into a high-powered capacitor, burning him away completely, erasing even his legendary healing factor. For Wolverine, there were no more lives left to lose. After Wolverine, Frank turned his sights on the remaining monsters, those who had terrorized the world for years. One by one, he hunted them down. The Fantastic Four, Ghost Rider, Green Goblin, Vision, Captain Marvel, Iron Man, Black Panther, and more. Frank studied each target, exploiting their arrogance and unique weaknesses. Some tried to fight, some tried to plead, but all of them fell. There were no epic battles, no last-minute escapes, just cold, calculated executions. For the first time, the world's greatest villains were powerless, but the bloodshed caught up with him. After the last body fell, Frank was arrested yet again. In his cell, Matt Murdock came to visit, trying one final time to reach the man behind the Punisher. Matt pleaded with Frank to let go of his crusade, to let himself be saved. Frank's answer was simple and cold. "I'm not stopping, Matt. Never. Forget about me." The war wasn't over yet. Frank's crusade led him to a final showdown with the living legend himself, Captain America. Their battle was long and brutal. Frank exhausted every weapon he had, but Cap just wouldn't stay down. Finally, battered and cornered, Frank seemed to have nothing left. Steve Rogers let his guard down, thinking he'd finally won. But Frank had stashed a gun earlier, hidden for just this moment. Without warning, he pulled it out and shot Captain America from behind, point blank. The last symbol of heroism fell, not in glorious battle, but by the same ruthless tactics that had felled every other legend. In Frank's new world, nobody was above punishment. With nearly every hero and villain gone, Frank's final mission became clear. When one of the Cabal's members got arrogant, boasting that Frank would be their personal weapon forever, Frank shot him dead on the spot, making it clear he wasn't anyone's pet. The rest learned quickly, that even those who tried to control the Punisher would face his judgment. It came down to one last confrontation: Frank Castle versus Matt Murdock, Daredevil. Two men who knew each other's pain better than anyone, now alone in the world Frank had emptied. Their battle was long and brutal. Daredevil fought harder than anyone ever had, and, in the end, he bested Frank, pinning him down and offering a hand of redemption. One last chance to end this crusade. But Frank refused. He used that final moment to drive a blade straight through Matt's heart. As he lay dying, Matt pulled off his mask, revealing he was Matt Murdock, Frank's friend through it all. That truth hit Frank harder than any blow. For the first time, the weight of everything he'd done finally crushed him. Matt's final words came through blood and pain, a whisper more heartbreaking than any battle. "There is always someone under the mask, Frank. But you killed us all." Frank's answer was quiet, heavy with regret. "No, Matt. There's one more to go." With nothing left but guilt and rage, Frank turned the gun on himself, ending the last life the Punisher had to punish. So ended the bloodiest chapter in Marvel's history, written by a man who lost everything and took the world with him. Frank Castle thought he was serving justice. In the end, he found only emptiness. This story isn't about good or evil, hero or villain. It's about what happens when pain goes unanswered and the cycle of vengeance never ends. Maybe the Marvel Universe could have survived any threat, except for the one man who knew how to break it from the inside. If you want more stories that pull no punches, subscribe, comment your thoughts below, and let us know which iconic tale you want to see next. Until then, remember, sometimes the scariest mask of all is the one worn by a man with nothing left to lose.